It was a quiet, sunny day when Sophia James stepped through the revolving doors of Empire Bank. She wore business casual attire, a tailored blazer, crisp white blouse, dark jeans and flats, her usual style, chosen for comfort and professionalism. Sophia had come to this prominent bank for an important meeting, one she had personally arranged weeks ago with the executive board. But as she walked toward the front desk, she couldn't have known she was about to become the subject of an unfortunate lesson in prejudice. As Sophia approached the counter, the bank manager, Mr. Carter, noticed her arrival. He was a middle-aged man with neatly combed gray hair, dressed in an expensive suit and tie, his expression lined with years of easy entitlement. The warmth he had shown to the couple before her faded the moment he looked in her direction, replaced by an icy disinterest. His gaze held a slight, disapproving squint as it swept over her outfit and settled on her face with a subtle curl of his lip. It was a look Sophia recognized all too well. After a few moments, the couple completed their transaction and left. Sophia stepped forward, ready to introduce herself with her usual professionalism and calm. "Good morning," she said, offering a polite smile. "I'm here for a meeting with—" Before she could even finish, Mr. Carter cut her off, his tone clipped and unfriendly. "Do you have an appointment?" he asked, his words edged with suspicion, his eyes narrowing as if assessing her legitimacy. Sophia's smile wavered. "Yes," she replied, her voice steady. "I have a meeting with the executive board scheduled for this morning." The manager raised an eyebrow, openly skeptical. "The executive board?" he repeated, his tone dripping with disbelief. "What business would you have with them?" Sophia's calm, professional exterior remained, though she could feel his condescension stinging beneath her skin. "I'm Sophia James," she said, extending a hand that he ignored. "I'm here for a corporate review meeting." Carter's smirk grew. "I'm not sure what you think this place is, miss," he replied, each word heavy with disdain. "But we don't just let anyone walk in and demand meetings with our executives." Sophia's patience began to thin, but she held her composure. She knew exactly what Mr. Carter was doing. As a black woman with a high-ranking position, she'd often found herself in places where people doubted her capabilities based on appearance alone. But she'd worked hard to get where she was, and she wasn't about to let someone like him intimidate her. "Look," she said, her voice steady but with an edge, "I'm not demanding anything. I'm here for a scheduled meeting. I'd appreciate it if you would verify it." Before Mr. Carter could respond, Sophia glanced over to the receptionist behind the counter, who appeared torn between discomfort and sympathy. "Could you please check the schedule?" she asked, her tone softening. But Mr. Carter stepped in front of the receptionist before she could respond, blocking Sophia's view. "No need," he said dismissively. "I already know what's going on here. You don't have a meeting with anyone important." Sophia drew in a steadying breath. "Mr. Carter," she said, her voice cool and composed, "you're making a mistake." Mr. Carter's smirk widened, clearly amused by what he saw as an empty threat. "I don't think I am," he replied, still eyeing her with disdain. "I've seen this before, people trying to get access to things they're not entitled to." The sting of his words lingered, but Sophia kept her head held high. She knew better than to let him get the satisfaction of seeing her flustered. "Very well," she said with an air of finality. "When you realize who I am, I hope you'll remember this moment." Mr. Carter chuckled, brushing her words off. Just then, the front doors opened, and Sophia's assistant, Claire, hurried inside. She spotted Sophia immediately, her face showing both relief and frustration as she approached. "Miss James," Claire called out, her voice carrying across the room, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm so sorry I'm late. The board is ready for your meeting." The lobby went silent. Mr. Carter's smirk faltered, his gaze shifting rapidly between Sophia and Claire. "Miss James?" he repeated, his voice suddenly uncertain. Sophia turned to him, her expression unreadable but piercing. "Yes, Miss James. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of James Industries, which happens to own this bank." Color drained from Carter's face, his smirk replaced with sheer panic as the gravity of his mistake dawned on him. He had just spent the last several minutes humiliating the woman who had more authority in the building than anyone else, including himself. Every pair of eyes in the lobby turned to watch the exchange, the employees, discomfort clear as they shifted uncomfortably. The realization dawned on many of them as well. Although they didn't know Sophia personally, They could see the respect she commanded in her posture, in her calm, composed manner. Without another word, Sophia and Claire turned and walked toward the executive boardroom, leaving a stunned Mr. Carter frozen in place. The entire lobby was silent, the employees' whispers barely audible, yet Carter could feel their judgment like a weight on his shoulders. As Sophia and Claire approached the boardroom, Mr. Carter trailed behind them, his face pale, his hands trembling as he considered the consequences of his actions. Just as Sophia reached for the boardroom door, Carter made one final attempt to salvage the situation. "Miss James," he stammered, forcing a feeble smile. I'm terribly sorry for the misunderstanding. I had no idea." Sophia turned to face him, her expression calm but her eyes cold with authority. "You didn't know my position," she replied, her tone measured, "but you certainly knew how you chose to treat me." Carter's fake smile vanished. He opened his mouth to speak, but Sophia raised a hand, silencing him. "This isn't about a misunderstanding, Mr. Carter. It's about how you chose to handle yourself. I expected more from someone in your position." The words hung in the air, heavy with the quiet power Sophia held as she turned back toward the boardroom. Claire held the door open for her, casting one last glance at Carter, who looked as though he wished the ground would swallow him whole. Inside, Sophia took her seat at the head of the long mahogany table where several executives were waiting, blissfully unaware of the confrontation that had just unfolded outside the door. Sophia offered them a polite nod, then turned to Claire, who placed a folder of documents in front of her. As the executives dove into the meeting agenda, Sophia's mind was only partially on the discussion. Her thoughts kept returning to Mr. Carter. It wasn't the first time she had encountered this kind of prejudice, but today's encounter had been particularly egregious. She knew she had to address it, not just for herself, but for the countless others who had likely endured similar treatment at this bank without the power to confront it. Meanwhile, back outside the boardroom, Mr. Carter paced nervously. His anxiety mounted with every passing minute as he played the scene over in his mind, realizing just how deeply he had miscalculated. The whispers among the bank employees grew louder, spreading quickly. They all knew that Mr. Carter had humiliated a high-ranking executive, assuming she was unimportant based solely on her appearance. Eventually, the door to the boardroom creaked open, and one of the senior executives stepped out, his face unreadable as he motioned for Mr. Carter to enter. "Mr. Carter," he said, his voice formal, "we need you in here." Carter's heart sank, his face going pale as he straightened his suit and walked into the room. The atmosphere was tense. He could feel the weight of the executive's judgment pressing down on him as he approached the table. Sophia sat at the head of the table, her calm gaze fixed on him. "Mr. Carter," she began, her voice cool but carrying a quiet strength, "please, take a seat." Carter obeyed, barely able to meet her gaze as he took a seat closest to the door. His hands shook as he placed them on the table, and he felt small under the piercing stares of the executives. "I believe you know why you're here," Sophia continued, her tone unwavering. "You and I had an encounter in the lobby earlier, one I'm sure you now realize was deeply inappropriate." Carter nodded, his voice barely a whisper as he began to stammer out an apology. "Miss James, I didn't realize who you were. If I had known—" "It doesn't matter if you knew who I was or not," Sophia interrupted, her voice steady. "What matters is how you chose to treat me. You made assumptions based on nothing more than appearance, and you treated me with disdain. You didn't even attempt to confirm my appointment. Instead, you chose to dismiss me." The weight of her words crashing down on him. He had no defense, no way to justify his actions. Deep down, he knew Sophia was right. As Sophia's story unfolds, it reminds us all of the importance of respect, empathy, and standing against prejudice in every corner of society. By refusing to let judgment define her and addressing the issue head-on, Sophia has shown that true strength lies in grace and integrity. If this story resonated with you or got you thinking, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. We've got more thought-provoking content coming your way, so be sure to stay tuned. Thank you for watching, and remember, everyone deserves respect, no matter who they are or what they look like. See you next time.